Hello, everybody. How is everybody out there in internet land? I hope you're all doing well. It was a beautiful day here in Clearwater Beach, Florida, except Florida's so weird. You're just sitting here, it's a beautiful day, and then all of a sudden you hear this huge thunderclap, and you go under the weather radar, and just north of me, seemingly a thunderstorm formed in less than 5 minutes. It was like beautiful. Then all of a sudden, boom, it was this huge thunder clap that I wouldn't say maybe jump out of off the couch or anything, but so weird. By the way, this is Unfound Live for August 18th of 2025. I can't believe that it's been over 2 weeks since my birthday, and I can't believe I forgot my nephew's birthday yesterday. Sorry, Charlie. Sorry about that. The 17th. I think I could remember that. Well, happy birthday. Everybody that is in the chat, I know we're just getting started, so there's not a lot of people in here. Everybody wish my nephew Charles a happy birthday, being that his uncle forgot. I wouldn't say I forgot, more like I was unsure. No, I can't remember it. August 17th. Very good. So everybody wish Charles a happy birthday. I'm going to bring that up more than once, I'm sure, before we are done tonight. Once more people get in here for this live show for August 18th of 2025. I have a spectacular show lined up for all of you tonight. Maybe you can tell that already by the title. I'm going to be talking about a disappearance that I do not believe I've attempted to reach out to this young man's family. But I'm going to talk quite a bit about the disappearance, the 1999 disappearance of Michael Negrete from the campus of UCLA. Caught my attention recently as I've started to do these. Really, I'm not even necessarily looking for a disappearance. It's just from week to week, one will catch my attention, and that's the one that will I'll choose to at least analyze, at least as best I can from the given information. And so I'm going to be talking about his disappearance tonight, and I have done extensive reading on it, and I know about the construction, and I went to web sleuths and went to newspaper articles. I think I'll probably bring something new to the discussion tonight. You can judge that for yourselves. If you're not familiar with this disappearance, you'll get generally familiar with it tonight. Yes, I'm going to talk about the Kardashians. That was not a misprint. I have to talk about them since they have decided, since we all got together a week ago, that they are going to be involved, or I guess they're going to get involved in the disappearance of Amy Bradley. What that exactly means, I don't know. And it's a little crazy, but not as crazy as you think, because they have done some work for people that they believe were wrongly convicted, and I guess they've done some good work there. I don't know, but I'm going to get more into that. And then also, we know of this recent murders plural, that occurred in Arkansas, where a married couple was out with their kids, and this young guy stabbed both of them to death. The adults, the children were unharmed, and then he was eventually caught. Well, now they're looking at him. Could this guy actually be a serial killer? So I'm going to take a look at that as well before we are done tonight. Like I said, I've said before, as I've started doing things this way, you know that I will get to everything that's in the title for sure. And of course, I'll sprinkle in some other topics that I want to cover as well. But you can guarantee before we are done at 11 p.m. Eastern, I will have discussed all three of those topics in depth. As you are watching tonight, like I always say, please give this show, a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. And if you'd like to contribute to what we do here at Unfound, patreon.com/Unfound podcast, or hit the join button below if you're watching on YouTube. Also, if you're using YouTube to view this show, you can hit the super chat while the live show is running and contribute that way. And also there's paypal.me/Unfound podcast. So let's see who is in here, and then I'll get started into the agenda. Hello, Awful Waffle. Now that is funny. Waffles are fine to me. Not my most favorite breakfast item, but they're okay. Hello, Awful. Amy, good to see you. Fishing, what's up? Charlie, once again, sorry, happy belated birthday. Hello, Derek and Neighborly and Jacqueline. Good to see you. And Lisa, good evening. I'm getting old and forgetful, but I made it. Hello, Lisa. And hello, Patty. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for joining in this evening from Facebook. What's going on with me? Well, first of all, you might notice if you're really watching and not just listening that I have a little bit of a different setup here tonight. The microphone is over in front of me. This goes along with a new microphone that I got since the last time we got together. The reason I did that is you might have noticed in Friday's episode, at least my part of it, where I'm just talking by myself, not during the interview, but there was a little bit of a buzzing going on, just a little bit of a buzzing going on. And I was able to determine that it was not like the cord or the computer or anything else. It was the microphone. Nobody should be surprised by that. That microphone was 20 years old, and I can't even tell you how many times it was dropped. And in fact, it's right here. I'll show you how damaged it is now that it's not on the cord anymore. Hold on a moment. Here is the old microphone, and I don't know if you can see. Look, the covering is not even round anymore. It's been flattened in some spots. You don't know how many times it's been dropped like this, either on this stand, like I hit the stand and the stand gets knocked over, or how many times it's been transported from Pennsylvania or Florida to Pennsylvania and back. And it has taken a little bit of a beating over the years. And I think that it had developed a little bit of a hum. So I thought, well, it's time. So this is the new microphone you see in front of me right now. And I thought, well, maybe this is a time to reimagine the setup that I had going on here. And you'll notice that it's in front of me, and the guard, that keeps me from popping the peas when I'm recording, that's out of the way. And I think it'll be fine for what I'm doing here. However, for actually recording the podcast, I will move that back in front so the peas don't pop and other things that go on when you don't use one of these shields. It's still here. Let me see if I can show it to you. It's still here. I just have it bent out of the way. So I got a new microphone. It was due. I did not go expensive. I got a cheap one, given how I tend to abuse equipment anyway. I'm not spending a bunch of money on a really high-tech microphone. We're not doing a progressive rock here. In other news, though, I got a new computer as well, and I'm using it. It's off to my side where I have my notes for tonight's live show. If you don't know, I do not do these live shows off the top of my head. it takes me a couple hours to put together all my notes for these live shows. Usually I start on, well, it just depends. Sometimes I will start on Saturday. Usually I start on Sunday putting everything together, then finish it today. I got most of it done yesterday, just added a few things today. But the reason I got a new computer is my HP, which is back here sitting on like this coffee table in front of the couch now. It still works, but it was just getting a little weird. Frankly, I started worrying about the speed of it, and it seemed to be heating up a little bit more than usual. And I actually bought a new battery for it because that one has lasted 4 years, which is longer than any laptop that I've had in quite a while, maybe in 15 years or something. So it's lasted like 4 years. Once again, given the way I am with equipment, that's pretty good. But I put a new battery in it because it wasn't holding a charge that well anymore. And that was fixed, but it still seemingly gets a lot hotter than it should. So there's something going on there. And as long as I have it plugged in, it seems like it's fine. The fan is running. I've actually replaced the fan in that one once already when it quit. I tore it all apart, put it back together. But I just started getting a little leery about that because I had, when was it? Maybe back in 2017, 2018. I just had a laptop die on me just like that with no warning. Boom. It was dead. With all my podcast and early on in Unfound's existence, with all of Unfound's information on it. That was no good. And that brought about me, of course, now using external hard drives and everything else that are also back here. And yes, on that one that I'm a little shaky on now, I have taken everything off. It's still on there, but I moved everything that was important onto an external hard drive in case anything really eventually does go bad with that computer. I'll probably still use it, but I'm now doing all new work on my new one. Now, what's interesting about this one is that this new one is that it does not have Windows 11 on it. Well, it's a Chromebook. It's like a Google product. And so we're going to see how that goes. It takes a little bit of getting used to, has a little bit of a different feel to it. So far, it's been fine. It's just a little different. So right now I have 3 different computers with 3 different operating systems on them. So I got my Mac right here, which is what I use always for the live shows, my MacBook. And this MacBook's not even a year old yet, I don't think. The other one, the battery went on it. This one, by the way, this one is a refurbished one. I bought it used, like refurbished, new, and it's been fantastic, by the way. So if anybody wants to get a Mac and you think it's too expensive, you might want to think about getting a refurbished one. They're a lot cheaper, and so far this one has been excellent. Just a thought. So then I have this one back here, the old HP that has Windows 10 on it. And now I have this new one that has Chrome OS or whatever they call this one. So I'm a little, I'm an equal opportunity computer user, I guess is what I'm saying. And so I'm versed in all forms. I speak more than one computer language. Maybe we could just put it that way. So I will keep you posted as far as how this new computer works out for me. Like I said, I just got it. Both the microphone and the computer came after last week's show. I ordered them and they got here very, very quickly. And so I think I opened up the box on the computer I think I got the microphone Thursday and then got the computer on Friday. So I've been working with it for a few days, and so far, so good. So some new equipment in Unfound's inventory, and that's how many laptops since I started Unfound now. I think 4 PC or 4 PC based, I guess should say, including this one over here, the new one. 4 PC based laptops and 3 Mac computers. I started Unfound with a Mac Mini, one of those little cubes. And then I went to my first MacBook, which is back in the closet now. And now I have this one. 7 computers in 9 years. True story. True story. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The good news, though, is that I think I've gotten some pretty good deals on these computers. This one that I got, this laptop I got, was not expensive at all in my world. This MacBook was like $500, but that's pretty cheap for Mac. Of course, it's refurbished. And I think this HP that has lasted me 4 years, I think it was only like $350. So I think I'm getting some good deals. But if you're getting into podcasting, this is just the way it goes. So let's see what everybody's saying, and then I will move on to some new stuff. Hello, D. How are you? Yeah, D and I didn't get to talk this past week, unfortunately. We didn't get to do our trivia show. Maybe this Thursday, D. Maybe we can make that happen. I'm hoping. And I'll get to, of course, what I was doing last Thursday evening. I had another thing to do. Hello, Stephanie. Rockford says, I have an Asus Chromebook. Love it. I predict you'll get used to it quickly. All right, Rockford. Thank you. It's actually an HP, but it has the Chrome or Google operating system on it. And hello, Can. And D says, yes, I need it. What do you need, D? Yes, I need it. Tell us what you need, D. In other news, trivia this past week. Only played last Wednesday with my regular team. We were first going to the final question, and we were not 100% sure on it. So we didn't bet any points. And the team that was in second place did bet all their points, and they got it right. So after 7 weeks of all those points and everything, we are tied for first with this other team. So it's going to be knock, drown, drag out, I guess, till the end of September. The thing is, though, I'm going to be missing 2 of those Wednesdays. Next Wednesday, I'm going to Orlando for a disc golf tournament. And then in one of the Wednesdays in September, I'm going to see Dream Theater, the rock band Dream Theater, for the first time. So they'll have to do without me at trivia. I guess that's the way it goes. But I think there's 5 weeks left. I'm going to miss 2 of them. But I guess we had a chance to get that final question right. But we've been stung so many times by betting all of our points and getting 0 that it actually kept us from winning last season, the 3-month season. And I vowed that we're not taking any zeros this season, these 3 months. And it's kept us at the top. You just have to live with the fact that some teams are going to get lucky once in a while and double bet. They also are, I think, more likely of taking that 0, and that's how we're going to stay at the top, I think. We'll see. But we played really well. You know, it just comes down. I mean, I can't even tell you over the years how many times we've been leading going to the final question and then missed it, or didn't go it, or didn't know it, or whatever. And we've won a ton over the last 13 years. I mean, we have won a ton. And I can't even imagine how much we would have won if every time we were going to the final question in the lead, if we would have continued to kept our lead. I can't even tell you how much we would have won. It would be mind-boggling. The trivia, because I have been upset. Yeah, I know, D. Yeah, D. Well, let's make. I got nothing going on Thursday evening, D. So let's do it. I'll be ready. I'll be prepared. I have nothing going on this Thursday evening, so maybe we can schedule that right now. Look for me and D on her YouTube channel on Thursday evening. We'll get back to doing a little true crime trivia. In some other news, what else has been going on with me? Football season has started for my dad. Slippery Rock University, his football team, they're back to practicing. So he has something new to do, to go up and watch the football practices. So he's excited about that. And my singing, going back to a little bit of basics for my singing after my lesson last Friday. The big thing for me is staying away from being what we would call a throat singer. I'm sure even if you've never even taken any voice lessons, you've heard about, singing from your diaphragm, singing from your belly, and using your stomach, to push the air out and using the force of your midsection to get the air out instead of, constricting your throat to sing. And I think I'm just a little bit of a throat singer. And the way you know that is you can be a throat singer. You can go like karaoke and be a pretty good karaoke singer. If you only have to do a couple songs, you'll probably be fine. If you do everything else right and have a decent range and everything else, you're probably going to sound pretty good. The problem is if you actually want to be a lead singer in a band or something like that, there's no way you're going to last for 2 hours. You might not even last 5 or 6 songs because these muscles in this part of your body and the throat were not made to do that. They could do that for a little time, but eventually you're going to start to lose your voice. And that's how people ruin their voices and a bunch of other things. They're not singing pushing the air out from their diaphragm. They're actually just restricting the air as it gets up in here instead. And I do a little bit of that, probably not as bad as a lot of people, but if you're going to fix something like that, now is the time to do it. So since Friday, been working on just breathing exercises, breathing from my lower abdomen below the belly button down in the lower diaphragm. And because you have to realize that, when you hear a lot of, for example, rock singers, when they're hitting those high notes, it sounds like they're straining and stuff. They're really not. They're not shouting or anything like that. It's actually just a very concentrated, very controlled use of air, starting from your lower midsection, and they're really not using as much air as it sounds. They just have a lot of great resonance and everything, because air, although you need air to sing, air is also what can kill your vocal cords because it dries them out. So you want to try to use as little air as possible. And the way you do that is by singing from your stomach instead of using your throat to just limit the air that can get into, across your larynx and then, out your mouth or anything. So getting a little bit back to basics on that. It's not easy to do, but had a lesson on Friday. It was frustrated. I'm not a patient guy, but I believe in doing things right as well. So sometimes you have to take some steps backwards to go forwards. So that's what's going on there. Also, I'm working on my disc golf throwing. I have no idea which Ed Dunstall is going to show up next week in Orlando to play because I'm in the middle of revamping my swing. And in fact, I did some videoing this morning, and the guy that I'm using online watched it and got back to me. So I have things to work on. So I have no idea what's going to go in Orlando. Not this weekend, but Labor Day weekend. I could play really well, or I could get my butt kicked. But with both the singing and the disc golf, I'm trying to take a long view on it. But taking long views is not my not very good at that because I'm not I'm not patient. I'm not a very patient guy. I like things now. I think it's my only child coming out in me. Even though I have brothers and a sister, I was raised as an only child, no brothers and sisters, and I think that's what's coming out in me. All right. So that's what's been going on with me. I feel fantastic. Been sleeping pretty well. Last night was a little weird, but I felt fantastic all day. I'm all good. Feel still working on my losing of some weight, but it's going okay, not great. So that's really been about it. Nothing really bad or anything going on. It's just crazy how fast the days go by. It seems like my birthday was yesterday. That was 2.5 weeks ago. I don't know. The good news is that means my next birthday will get here pretty fast, I guess. Hello, Kate. What's going on? Good to see you. All right, let's get right into this. And I am going to start with Michael Negrete. Now, as I've usually said in past weeks, this is not to be seen as the most overtly in-depth or complete analysis of a disappearance. I would say that what I'm doing with these is more in depth than I can do with the Unfound Nows. Of course, the Unfound Nows, the disappearances are very, very new, so there's not a ton of information. But it's not like a regular podcast episode either that I haven't talked to anybody in Michael's family. I don't know all the intricacies of his life like I get to know with all of these missing people that we feature. So it's kind of halfway between an Unfound Now and the Unfound podcast as far as coverage goes. That's the way I see it. So just so you know, I would, of course, once I go through this tonight, I think there have been YouTube channels and podcasts that have covered it. But my belief is that his family does not do much media anymore. In fact, they used to have a website. And in fact, I think maybe years and years ago, I think I actually went to the website when it was up and running. It's not up and running anymore because I checked. But I've never reached out to them. I checked the usual different ways, like with email and everything that I checked to see if I ever tried to contact his family. I have not. So this is just going to go off of what is written in the Charlie Project, what I was able to glean a little bit from Web Sleuths going way back. I mean, if you go to the thread on Michael Negrete and Web Sleuths, it goes back to 2004, 21 years ago. And then you look at posts like more recently, they're all basically saying the same thing. Not much has changed over the 20 years, which is very sad. And also looked at some news articles, and I put together this presentation for all of you. So Michael Negrete, Negrete. And I'm just going to read not all, but partly what is written on the Charlie Project. And I did go and make sure it was at least generally true by looking at some news articles, some other things that have been done about his disappearance. Michael was a freshman at the University of California at Los Angeles, otherwise known as UCLA. In 1999, he lived on the 6th floor of Dykstra Hall dormitory on campus, which is located near the intersection of Gailey Avenue and Strathmore Boulevard. And I did go and take a look at a map of this location. Never been to UCLA, although I think that I rode by there a few times, maybe back in 2003, 2004. Negrete had been playing a computer game with a friend for several hours. The game ended at approximately 4 a.m. on December 10th of 1999, and he logged off his computer at that time. My understanding is this was gaming over the internet, which, as you would realize, at that point was relatively new. And in fact, I can remember when I started at Star Trek, a lot of gamers worked there, and I can remember them talking about playing online. It was like the big thing, cable internet was like the big thing at the time. If you had you had cable internet, man, that was just so good for gaming. I specifically remember that now because I had dial-up for so long after I moved to Las Vegas. So I think this was not him and another person in a room playing like in the same room. I think this was over the internet, I think. But he logged off of his computer at that time at 4 a.m. Negrete's roommate awoke at 9 a.m. and discovered Negrete had disappeared. Authorities believe he left his room between 4 a.m. and 9 a.m. I guess that makes sense. That day, all of Negrete's personal belongings, including his clothing, shoes, wallet, and musical instruments, were left behind in his residence, in his dorm. He has never been heard from again. Search dogs, you know how I feel about them, but I'm going to read it anyway. Search dogs tracked Negrete's scent to Sunset Boulevard and Bellagio Street in LA, but no other evidence was located. I did check that. Not that far of a walk, and my understanding is that that intersection could be near a where a bus stop is, possibly. But of course, everybody's heard of Sunset Boulevard. The way I would explain it, it's kind of like on the west end of Sunset Boulevard, at least the way I look at it, having been on Sunset Boulevard many times. I know Rockford, I know where you live. You can maybe correct me. Authorities released the sketch of a possible witness in Negrete's case in 2000, so a year later. The unidentified Caucasian man was seen inside Dykstra Hall at 4:35 a.m. Of course, I'm going to talk about this later. This person was seen at 4:35 a.m. on December 10th. Investigators do not know if the individual is connected to Negrete's case or if he did indeed witness anything, but they would like to question him. The sketch of the man is posted with this case summary, so if you go to the page for Michael Negrete's disappearance on the Charlie Project, you will see a sketch of this person. This person is described as being approximately 35 years old, so a lot older than your average UCLA student in 1999, 5'7" to 5'8", in height, 5 feet 8 inches, with a heavy build. He was wearing a shiny gray jacket with a turquoise colored design. The individual has yet to be identified. Negrete did not have a vehicle at UCLA. He left behind his parents and 2 younger brothers. His family said they could not uncover any hidden secret he may have had at the time, which would have led to his disappearance. Authorities have leads, say they have had leads in Negrete's case, and that's where I ended it, what I copied. And there's at least maybe a couple more paragraphs on the Charlie Project regarding his disappearance. And once again, you can go there and read about it. You can go to Web Sleuth. There's a long thread. A lot of people giving their opinions on it. And if you have a newspapers.com account, you, of course, find articles about Michael there as well. But like I said, if you're looking for the website that they had for Michael's disappearance, it exists. You can put in it, but it takes you to some, somebody's kind of taken over the website, and it goes like buy cheap watches or something like that. So I think if you're schooled enough in Unfound's disappearance, this is probably reminds you a lot of the disappearance of Joshua Guimond. The big differences, though, are that at least the understanding with Joshua, he didn't disappear at 4 a.m. It was more, maybe we might call a reasonable hour, like maybe 11 to midnight, something like that. In addition, if we're to believe the stories regarding his disappearance, he was around other guys in a dorm at the time. It wasn't like he was sitting there by himself and everybody went to sleep or something. And they saw him leave, and it was accepted that they thought, I guess they were a little confused. People thought maybe he was going to the bathroom. Some people thought he was walking back to his dorm. And that's the other point, is we have to realize that Joshua Guimond seemingly did not disappear from his own dorm. And I know all of the stories that are out there about, did he go back to his dorm, who erased stuff for his computer? I'm not going to get into that. But I'm guessing when you hear of young man going missing from college campus, you could put Michael Negrete's with Joshua Guimond's. It's very easy to do. But there are, like I said, there are some differences. And of course, another big one is that here, Michael went missing in essentially the middle of the second largest city in the United States. Although there's some wooded areas, not that many. if we're to start thinking about, well, why hasn't he been found? Whereas with Joshua Guimond, we know that he was up in Minnesota, certainly in a town, but a lot more rural area around there. If we're going to entertain the idea that he walked off for some reason and died in the woods or got lost in the woods. And I realize there are people who think that, he got attacked. Was he meeting up with somebody? Did one of the priests do something with him? And like I said, I'm not here to get into that. Now, another big thing that's not mentioned in the Michael Negrete write-up on the Charlie Project, although it might have been in one of the lower paragraphs that I didn't copy, is there was a huge amount of construction happening at his dorm and in that area at the time. Didn't get into necessarily specifics. Were they refurbishing the outside of the dorm? Were they putting new windows or doors or sidewalks? Were they working on the street? It might have been a combination of a variety of things put together. And we have to remember this was 26 years ago. And so no matter what that construction was done, it's certainly old now. In fact, we might even be open to the idea that since then, it very well could be that they did even more refurbishing in that situation. 26 years, how long does construction last these days? I guess depending on how bad people want job security. So we have to be open to the idea that construction was done at the time, and maybe since it's been so long, construction was done in that area again, possibly. But the way I read it is that it became a little bit of a maze around there to get into the dorm, to get out of the dorm. Even people who didn't live in the dorm, maybe just having to walk through that area to get the class, go here, go there. You had to walk in specific areas. And of course, we got all the orange cones and probably the yellow tape, and we got all probably mounds of dirt, and there could have been some holes there. And I'm getting to get into that. A little bit of everything going on. It sounded like a lot of construction to me. I don't know when it started. I don't know how long it lasted. All I know is it sounds like it was fairly complex. And as Dia stating, sounds like Brian's case. And there was even, was there something going on, some building or construction, remodeling or something going on, like when you're talking about Brian Schaefer is what D is mentioning here. So, one of the issues we have, and maybe back in the day, if his family did some interviews or something, maybe that came out, but there was nothing specific I could find for the following things that would help me analyze this disappearance better. All right, so these are things that when I read the articles, went to Web Sleuths, looked at the Charlie Project, still a lot of questions in my mind that would make a lot of this clearer. First, I'd want to know, was it usual for him to stay up until 4 a.m. to play video games? You have to remember, I'm old, but not that old. I graduated college in 1993. Graduated before the internet became a thing nationwide, I guess you could say. But still, video game playing at my time in college was a thing. I had a lot of friends, never been a really big video game guy. Many of my friends played video games, not able to do that over the internet because it didn't exist at the time. I don't remember a lot of them staying up till 4 a.m. Probably they did. And being that I didn't play, maybe I didn't know about it. Very possible. But what I would want to know is, was this normal for him, or was this outside the norm? I think that's important. That would be important to know. Also, issues have been brought up, just like with Joshua Guimond, about Michael's sexuality. Was he straight? Was he gay? Was he somewhere in between? Nothing clear to me, although it has been written out there in a variety of places. Could he have been going to meet some guy? But I don't know about his sexuality. I will tell you that it doesn't, no matter what his sexuality is, meeting somebody at 4:30 in the morning seems unlikely. It just seems unlikely, but maybe. But I'd still maybe like to know that. We don't get too much into that. And that I'm not a big believer in Joshua Guimond's sexuality, whatever it was, having anything to do with his disappearance. I'm not inclined to believe that with Michael's either. But maybe there's something there, but without knowing that, it's hard to say. I'd also want to know this, because this is the way you just have to be with these things. This roommate who said that he was asleep and then woke up at 9 and Michael wasn't there. I don't know this roommate's name. Even if I did know it, I don't think that I would air it right now on this live show. But it would be interesting for me to know what this roommate has done with his life since 1999. If he's going to say seemingly he was the last person to see Michael, he gets up, Michael's gone, but all the stuff there. This starts, at least very, very generally, starts to sound like the man said type of situation, where I got up and he was gone and his stuff's there and I don't know what happened. We have to admit that. Okay. So I'd really want to know, who was this roommate? What has he done with his life for the last 26 years? What if we were to find out, maybe not that he's a murderer, he murdered somebody, but what if we were to find out he had some drug issues? Or what if we were to find out that he had some assault issues? Maybe we were to find out that after Michael goes missing, that his next roommate had problems with him, discovered something, and they couldn't live together. And having lived in a dorm for all 4 years when I went to school, I got along with all of my roommates except one, the guy who was my roommate the second half of my junior year, who I don't think anybody liked him. He transferred. The roommate, who was a good friend of mine my junior year, transferred out to another school. He had had enough of Grove City. And then this guy was a transfer in, and he and I didn't get along. And in fact, all of my friends didn't get along with him either. And I just had to put up with him. So these things happen. So what if we were to find out the guy who took Michael's place didn't get along with that roommate, has weird stories about that roommate? This is something that then we would have to take a serious look at, because, like I said, this comes across very generally like the man said type of situation, where somebody's missing, but their shoes, their clothes, their wallet, everything is still there. And the roommate's like, I just don't know what happened. Okay. Certainly could be. But I need to know more about this roommate. And of course, what are we to think if he's just lived the perfect life since then? Still wouldn't absolutely clear him, but this would be useful information, I think. Rockford, remind me, is the guy that LAPD wants to question the same who was allegedly seen in the dorm that night? Also, yes, U.S. State technically in the city of LA, but not really urban. Lots of open spaces. All right, Rockford. Is the guy that LAPD wants to question the same who was allegedly seen in the dorm that night? Yes. That's the way I took it, Rockford. Once again, everybody needs to understand, I am not an expert on this disappearance. Certainly not. Looking at the general useful information. And as we've learned with so many of Unfound's disappearances, you learn things about disappearances that are true that otherwise never made it into the news. So I have to believe, if I were to talk to Michael's family, that I would find out a lot of things that have never been published. Not that they're necessarily secret, but that maybe just nobody asked them that, because this is what I do, and it's mostly not what other people, this is not what most other people do. Just from that, I'd know the question to ask. Maybe a lot of people would not. Just saying. What I'd also, and I did look this up, of course, there's a lot of people missing in LA, but how many people have gone missing from the UCLA campus over all these years? A lot of kids have gone through that school Not many. Not many. Just kind of looking, looking through NamUs and everything. Really couldn't find anything that jumped out. Considering that UCLA has been around, I don't know how long, 100 years or something, however long. Even if we were to find out that 10 students have gone missing from UCLA in the last, even if it's just 50 years, it really would not surprise me too much, given the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of students who have been through there. You're going to tend to think that sometimes bad things happen, and then would have to look at, or are they mostly men? Are they mostly women? Could it have been domestic violence? Was the girl dating the wrong guy? Would have to look at each one of these. But even if you were to tell me 10 kids or even 20 went missing from UCLA over the last 50 years, I don't think that would cause me to think something is going on there that could be connected to Michael's disappearance. Maybe, probably not. Also, regarding this guy who was seen in the dorm, I'm wondering, and it's not really said anywhere, nothing that I could see, who saw this guy? All right, so somebody who looked too old to be a student was seen at the dorm at 4:30 in the morning. Well, who was the witness? It takes one to see one. Was this on video? After Michael went missing, did they have video cameras? So it'd be like VHS. Did they go back and check VHS tapes? What are we talking about? So, and how is it if this witness saw this guy, how did this witness not see Michael Negrete in the same building? It's hard to understand. So I don't know if I'm supposed to believe this sighting of this guy or not. Was this like some just early deliver to the dorm, or was it campus security or something? I would need to know more about how this person, it's not even important to me what the person looks like. It's more important for me to know who was in a position to see this person in the first place at 4:30 in the morning. And if somebody saw this guy, why didn't this witness see Michael? I think what I'm saying here right now, I'm leaning toward this person not being real. This sounds a little made up. It sounds a little made up. This sounds like somebody trying to be, quote unquote, helpful when they're really not being helpful. Because otherwise, if you're going to tell me that somebody, I'd be more inclined to think that this witness might have something to do with Michael's disappearance than this person. It's just the way I am at this point, 9 years into this podcast. I start wondering about what is somebody else doing up at 4:30 in the morning to even see somebody. Now, once again, if you're going to tell me it was seen on video, well, then we should know what the video showed from Michael going, I guess, walking out of the dorm. But we don't have any information like that. So I guess it doesn't exist. Well, then what are we talking about? The video saw this guy, but didn't see Michael, but Michael went missing. It's hard to understand. Once again, I'm just going off the public material. There's probably an explanation somewhere. But if I were to get to talk to Michael's family, and they would know more than you could find anywhere. And if, if they were nice enough to tell me as much as they could, I think I would start leaning toward the idea that this sighting at 4:30 is not real. And then we'd have to start thinking about, well, then who was this person that came forward to say this person even saw somebody there at 4:30? Then you start looking at that person, my opinion. Rock, very safe upscale area. So basically the opposite of USC. I've heard about USC. Yes, Rockford. Random foul play would be quite unusual at UCLA. Thank you for giving the locals insight, Rockford. Appreciate that. So, certainly a 35-year-old guy randomly walking around UCLA campus at 4:30 in the morning would be strange. I agree with that. Just randomly walking around, not jogging or walking a dog or anything, just randomly hanging out would be strange. But this doesn't sound real at this point to me. You might be thinking, moving on to the next topic, you might be thinking, well, it is LA. Isn't LA near the water? Well, it is, but the Pacific Ocean is not close. Now, of course, if he did leave and got a bus to the ocean for whatever reason, then yeah, it's close. And I'll get to that in a minute. But walking distance, well, you can't walk there. I mean, if you have enough time in the day, yeah, you can walk there. It seems unlikely. So I don't think that is a possibility at this point. Certainly conceivable physically. It's certainly possible. Conceivable meaning it doesn't defy any laws of physics. He wouldn't have to travel faster than the speed of light or anything. It's certainly conceivable. I just don't think it's very possible. Lots of buildings. And so we might think about a Bowman situation, but it's been 26 years, and we have to remember, as well known as Bo's disappearance is, he was only thinking, he was only missing for a couple years or something, only, once again, in quotes, only. And somebody finally stumbled upon him. I think that if this were the same situation for Michael Negrete, where he walked off and collapsed on some sort of abandoned property, I think over the last 26 years, I think somebody would have noticed. I think. So I already brought up the witness. D, what do you think about the baby that went missing? I'm not getting into that. I have an agenda tonight, D. You'll have to ask me that through Messenger, and I'll have to look it up. I'm not even sure what you're talking about. Sorry. Now, also, as has come into my mind over the past maybe 6 months because of my own issues that all of you have known have been going on, and like I said, I've been sleeping fantastically. When I start hearing about disappearances at 4:30 in the morning, could this be a legal drug situation? There was nothing that I saw anywhere to think that Michael Negrete was smoking weed or doing whatever, ecstasy or whatever was popular with college kids back at the time. I didn't see anything like that, but I also started thinking, could it be that, hey, he knows he's up to 4 a.m. He starts worrying about, am I going to be able to sleep? What exactly start wondering, what were his plans for later that day? Let's get back to this date. It was December something. What were his plans for December 10th of 1999? I don't know. Maybe it's out there. If it's so, I missed it. Was he supposed to be going to class that day? Did he have any plans? Was he supposed to meet his parents? I don't know any of that information. And could it be that he was worried about having enough sleep? Could he have taken an Ambien or something like that? This is something that comes to mind. Did he have any? And, if you don't know where I'm going with that, it's well documented. Ambien, of course, has helped a lot of people out. Luckily, I never took it. But it is one of those things that with Ambien, you don't take it until you're in bed and under the covers. It's not one of these things where you're going to be going to bed. You're planning to jump into bed in a half hour. I'll take one now. You do that, you will regret it. Because the thing about Ambien is that with certain people, you take one, yeah, the part of your brain that goes, quote unquote, goes to sleep. the rest of your brain doesn't. And so there are a lot of stories. In fact, it even came up recently talking to a long-term friend of mine. We happened upon that because I was telling her, about my sleep issues from the end of 2024 into 2025. And she talked about taking an Ambien and doing weird things. So this is on my mind. No proof of this. I want to make clear there's nothing anywhere that says anything about sleeping pills, Ambien, or anything like that for Michael Negrete's disappearance. But when I start hearing about guy by himself in dorm at 4:30 in the morning, seemingly has left all his stuff behind, what exactly was the plan here? This is, I think, what is really, really missing in the analysis of this disappearance. As much as, has been talked about the construction and everything else, to me, it goes even back further than that. Why was he leaving the dorm in the first place? Where was he going? And to remind you, he left. There we go. Here, I'll read it to you. His clothes, of course, his shoes, I guess all his shoes, his wallet and musical instruments. Now, of course, this is before cell phones. The watches that people now use as phones, and of course, well before any of that. But we have to put together a scenario where we can conceive of why a 19-year-old would leave his dorm without any of those items. It's hard to do. It's really hard to do. Hello, George. Hey, George. Everybody say hi to George, newest member of the think tank on Patreon. George, great to see you tonight. Thanks for joining in. I'm doing a little analysis of the disappearance of Michael Negrete. But to me, this is the big point of this disappearance. Now, here's what I roll out. I do not think that something happened in the dorm and others carried Michael Negrete out of it. Okay, that, although physically possible, conceivable, I just don't think that that's possible at all. That is too much of a stretch of my imagination. But we seemingly, and there's other things I think we have to consider here, but seemingly, if this is just going to keep this simple, that Michael Negrete left that dorm on his own by choice, what was he doing? It's hard to say. I think if was there a local 7-Eleven? I didn't even check. And even if I could check today, we don't know what it would be like 26 years ago. Was there a convenience store that was open 24/7 nearby? Maybe. But then wouldn't he have taken his wallet, or maybe did he just have a couple bucks or something? I guess he could have done that. But even then, we have to start thinking he had to go get something right then at 4 a.m. Maybe. Like I said, it seems unlikely. So I realize there's the talk, well, he could have gone down there and got, he made a wrong turn and fell into the construction and then got covered up. Could have. I'm more concerned about why he would be down there in the first place without his shoes and his wallet. And then we can start to go to, what are the odds that he falls into this construction and gets covered up or something happens and nobody else did? What are the odds of that? I'm just a little more concerned about why he would have left in the first place on his own. It's hard to say. In addition, I've seen some places where, he might have left in his bare feet. Once again, if he left in his bare feet without his wallet, what exactly was the plan here? if he was wide awake and conscious and everything else. Once again, hard to understand. Also, some people have brought up, well, maybe he got into some beef, as is common these days, and there's been some really bad ones. People get into arguments over the internet on video games, and we had that very well-known case where somebody got swatted, where somebody lost the game, was all ticked off, called 911 and called in a police call that there was like a hostage situation. And cops showed up and actually shot somebody to death by accident. Do you all remember that for some years ago? So some people, well, he was playing video games. How do we know, he didn't go have a beef with somebody and went to meet him? Once again, conceivable. It's happened. It still seems very, very unlikely to me. Goes down in his bare feet. I mean, what? He's going to meet him at the dorm or something. It seems, once again, unlikely. And you know me, I like to think, stay to what I think are the most likely scenarios. That's what I'm trying to do here. Certainly conceivable. He had a beef. Somebody threatened him. And he said, well, if you're so tough, why don't you come over to my dorm and I'm here. I'll meet you downstairs. I guess it could have happened. That's not the kind of feeling I got from reading about Michael, but maybe that happened. Rockford says, never bought the eyewitness accounts and doubt it matters. I don't see an abduction of adult male from a college dorm. I believe Negrete walked down the hall to say hi to his video game opponent. Okay. So Rockford's thinking that the video game opponent was actually in the same dorm. Is that factual information? I don't know. Derek says he could have been sleepwalking. Well, we'll get to that. Like I said, that's the reason I brought up the Ambien and whatever. Regarding the dogs, you know what I think about dogs. I think there's a lot of confirmation bias. I think that a lot of times these the dogs aren't leading the handlers, but the handlers are leading the dogs. And I'm not inclined to believe anything regarding any sort of scent going wherever. Regarding Michael's disappearance, it's one of those things that, as Derek says, well, was he sleepwalking? Well, would a sleepwalker know where to go get the bus? I really don't know the science of it. So I'm throwing out all of the dog stuff. I don't trust it at all. Also, as Rockford just stated, and I'm on the same page, foul play, as much as I think a lot of people believe that happened, is really not as likely as everybody thinks. It's just not. If this were a foul play scenario, would be having a lot more of these go around. Now, maybe that happened with Joshua Guimon, and certainly there are young men who disappear from college campuses. It certainly happens. I don't know how many of those really, 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 really end up being foul play. I think it's a very low percentage. And then I have to start thinking, well, what are the odds that he leaves his dorm in his bare feet without his wallet and everything else, and somebody just comes along and snatches him up? It seems unlikely. Now, granted, as Rockford said, maybe he had some beef with somebody down the hall. Maybe he actually was playing video games against some other person and they got in a fight. Then we're talking, a big cover up here or something, which to me also sounds unlikely. So then what, after talking about this for over a half hour, Ed, then what exactly are you saying, Ed? This also reminded me of the disappearance or the death, I guess suicide. How many of you know, how many of you have heard of the death of Kelly Nash? How many of you have heard about that? This was something that came to mind because it's very, very similar circumstances, although it did not happen on a college campus. Kelly seemed to be a good guy, working for his family in construction, building houses, from a family that was doing very well for themselves. And he was sick. I think he had the flu or something, but he decided that he was going to stay up and also play video games. And he was living, I don't know if he was married, but he was living with the woman in his life, girlfriend, married, engaged, I can't remember. But she said that because he was sick and he didn't want to get her sick, he was sleeping out and he was going to sleep out on the couch. She would sleep in their regular bed. She says the last time she saw him, he was sitting up playing video games late into the early morning, just like Michael Negrete. And then when she woke up the next morning, Kelly was gone. His truck was there. Everything otherwise was seemingly okay, but he was gone. Now, you should know, to be fair, there are people who don't believe her story. I'm going to tell you I do. If you don't want to believe her story, fine by me. That's fine. But my premise is I think she's telling the truth. That she got up the next morning, he's gone, his truck's there, everything's there. But I think that the way I remember it, she determined at the time that a gun that they owned was missing. So they started looking for him. They lived kind of near a lake, and I think the weather was really bad that night. Was it snow? Was it rain? I forget, but it was cold weather. And so they started looking around. Well, there was a convenience store down the street, and they went and checked the video, and one of the cameras happened to catch certainly a man walking along the road by himself in those early morning hours, when Kelly would have still been up or doing something. But this man was walking in a particular direction, didn't seem to be stumbling or anything, but just walking in a particular direction. Once again, you can go read about this for yourself. I'm guessing there have been some podcasts that have done coverage of this. Kelly Nash. Man Kelly, not woman Kelly, man Kelly. Kelly Nash. Well, we thought, well, maybe that was Kelly. Maybe he was walking somewhere for whatever reason. And they started looking in that direction. And what do you know? Down the road, at a dock of that lake, they discovered Kelly in the water with that gun. And they had determined that he had shot himself. And still the official, I think, on the record determination on Kelly Nash's death was suicide. Seemingly, for whatever reason, stopped playing those video games, took that gun, walked down the street, jumped into that lake, and shot himself. As you would probably expect, pretty rare. Maybe not as rare as we all think. And this is why I have continued to say that trying to use your common sense to try to figure these things out, you can't do that because there's no sort of logic, common sense that can explain that. I realize people think, well, she shot him and then somebody took him down. I'm just going to go by what the experts said. They said he was in the water first, then shot himself, or he was standing on the edge of the lake and shot himself and fell in or something like that. But he was there and he was in the water and there was certainly a gun and it was that gun and it was fired close enough to believe that it was suicide. And there was no, messing up of the house as if somebody got shot in the house and there was blood, nothing like that. There is no rational, logical explanation for it, but it happened. So I have to admit, in reading about Michael Negrete's disappearance, this is kind of what I think of. Now, there's no tale of any gun or anything, but why would Kelly Nash have done that? Nobody ever said that he had any thoughts about suicide or anything, but given my experience with certain flu medications way back in the day, coincidentally right around 1999, they can make your mind do a lot of weird things. So I think for Michael Negrete, I'm kind of going in that direction. And that's why I brought up the Ambien. Or what if we were to find out that he was sick? Maybe he had the flu and he was taking, like, for example, I can't take Theraflu and all that stuff. No. Ed Denzel cannot take any of that stuff because I start hallucinating and get paranoid. You don't even want to know, like, the Christmas of 1998 when I was house sitting for a coworker at 7-Eleven. At her house, I'm in a strange environment. She's out of town, and she said, well, could you watch my house? You could stay here for a few days. I said, sure. I was sick, took some Theraflu. I was going from window to window thinking people were after me. True story. This is something that comes to my mind. Also, what comes to my mind is a disappearance that we featured on Unfound, Daniel Villarreal, where, of course, he was into drugs. He ran off from a car wreck. Where was he found a few years later? In a woman's pool house that he didn't know. And if she had not decided that she wanted it refurbished or redesigned or torn down or whatever it was, and if her son hadn't come over and finally unlocked it, Daniel would still be missing. Something weird like that. Even though I think the reason Daniel did is because he was hiding from the police. I also think about much more recently, all of you know the disappearance and death of Caleb Davis in Texas. Remember, he was the kid once again, early morning of the next day, staying up past 1, 2 in the morning, where he had ordered Uber Eats. And sometime between him ordering the food and the food getting there, he went missing. And you'll remember, I think that I made that an Unfound now. And what did I say? I didn't think it was foul play. I don't think I could have predicted he would be found where it was found. I think I even said, well, he could have walked over to the body of water that wasn't too far away. But you will remember, I didn't think it was foul play. Didn't think it was like the Uber Eats driver or one of the roommates. You remember, I was like, no, it just doesn't seem like it. Like I said, I don't think I could predict that he would have been found in a sewer system, but that's where he was. And I realize there's people out there still thinking somebody put on that. Did not happen. For some reason, Caleb Davis, after ordering that food, went out there of his own free will, went into that sewer system and died. Just like Kelly Nash. It's just something that we as humans may never be able to explain unless even, I suppose, if somebody had, I think with Daniel Villarreal, I think he was in his right mind. He was just trying to hide. And I think that maybe he might have been injured from the car wreck or he got dehydrated or something. And he was probably on drugs. That doesn't help. He was certainly trying to avoid the police. But with Kelly and Caleb, unless somebody would have stopped them in the process, if somebody would have seen Caleb going down that manhole and said, hey, man, what are you doing? And stop them. That's the only way we probably would have been able to figure out what was in Caleb's head. Same way with Kelly Nash. He's walking down that road and somebody says, that doesn't look right, and goes over and stops him. That's probably the only way we would have known what was in Kelly Nash's head. And it could have been he was crazy, just completely lost his mind for whatever reason. Caleb Harris, Caleb Davis, Caleb Harris. Thank you. Got the name wrong. Amy, thank you for correcting me. Caleb Harris, Harr, not Caleb Davis. Caleb Harris, Harris. Sorry about that. This is how difficult I think these types of disappearances are. That unless you catch these people in the act of doing whatever they're doing that is completely irrational, illogical, and everything else, we're never going to know why they did what they did. It's easy to say, well, they were on drugs. Yeah. But why did they choose to do that with the drugs? because it's still not a complete explanation, because we know most people do drugs and they don't go off and do odd things like that. Even with people with Ambien, even though it's well documented, and Ambien is a legal drug, even though it's for prescription, we still have that minority that go off and do these things, and we have no explanation for it. This is where I think I am with Michael Negrete. It's just one of those very, very rare occasions where it's just not easily analyzed, except to say there are these other disappearances that seem the same, and we don't know why those ones happened either. We're never going to know what was in Kelly Nash's head. We're never going to know what was in Caleb Harris's head. And those are just the two that I know about. I'm sure there are many like that. Those are just the two that kind of come to mind. Maybe we could also talk about Heather Grotman, that disappearance she covered some years ago, where a guy went missing on Super Bowl Sunday in Texas. He gets hit by a car in the state of Washington like 36 hours later. How did he get there? Nobody knows. And he got killed by getting hit by that car. So we have no idea why he was there. So where I am now, why Michael would have been like that, I don't know. What I'd like to know more is about his mental state. I'd like to know if he was sick or not at the time. I'd still like to know about his roommate. Maybe all of this computer stuff is BS. Now, I will tell you, my opinion would change if we were to find out that his roommate was a bad guy. My opinion would change if somebody were to figure out that maybe he wasn't the one who shut off his computer. Maybe he didn't actually disappear at 4 a.m. Maybe he disappeared well before that if he was out that evening. Did anybody actually see Michael Negrete come back to the dorm like the previous evening or earlier that night or something like that? You know, maybe we have to go in that direction just to make sure. But if it's for sure that he shut off his computer, and if it's for sure that his roommate was just a fine, upstanding young man and has been very concerned ever since 1999 and has helped the family and done everything that he could and everything, I'm thinking this is a disappearance, like I just said, like Kelly Nash and Caleb Harris, where some young man in the early morning hours just completely goes off the deep end for some reason. Now, what does that mean? Where is he? You know, the tough part about this is that my insight is that this is not a situation of like paranoid schizophrenia or dissociative fugue, which really not a big believer in that anyway. In fact, I was just talking to somebody about that recently. Was that with Jason Blair? I think it was. These are not people, I think, that are losing contact with, you know, I don't think it was a situation where Michael walked off and he forgot who he was. My concern is he really maybe wasn't even thinking who he was. And I don't believe this is a situation where he like lost his mind and then went out there and then kind of got back to reality and then forgot who he was or anything. That just seems so highly, highly, highly unlikely to me. In addition, I didn't see anything in any of my reading to believe that he didn't like the way his life was going, to run off and start a new, you know, life in New York City instead of LA. Now, what does that mean where he is? I don't know. But I think this is something where something went on during the video game with his mind, or whatever he was doing. Might have taken some uppers to keep him up like that so he could play video games till 4 a.m, or he was worried about going to sleep, took an Ambien before he actually got in bed. If he did, then anything's possible. It just is. Let's see what everybody is saying here. Could he have been sleepwalking? Going back to your question, Derek, it's possible. It's possible. I don't know if would necessarily call it. What I'm describing is not sleepwalking. I'm talking about something, chemically going on with the mind that came on for whatever reason, not necessarily sleepwalking. Walking, but not asleep as we define sleep. Stephanie says there were a lot of weird non-students hanging around my college campus at all hours. It doesn't seem that unlikely to me. All right, Stephanie. That's fine. I just want to know who the witness is. Who was in a position to see somebody at 4:30? Was it somebody else, like you said, some weird non-student who said this? If so, I need to know way, way, way more about that. And if a weird non-student saw this guy hanging out there at 4:30, why didn't a weird non-student see Michael too? That's all I'm saying. Rockford, I recall his opponent was in the dorm. Interesting. I'll double check. 20-year Rockford may have left the dorm shoeless and walletless a time or two. Construction accident, unlikely, but maybe detour accident. Could be Rockford. Like I said, what are we then talking about here? It's, you may say, well, if we have to do like an alternate universe. Well, if there's no construction, then does he go missing? Who knows? Rockford, 100% with you on scenarios similar to Nash, Villarreal, Davis. Yeah, Harris. I'm sorry. Tyler in Omaha. Yeah, that one comes to mind. It's too. Could be. Caleb Harris, thank you, Amy, once again for refocusing my mind on the right name. D and Amy going back and forth. Okay. So that's where I am. I realize this is going to be a minority view regarding this. I read several threads, not every page, on Michael's disappearance on Web Sleuths. But what I'm saying here, I don't think was brought up by anybody at all. A lot of people, of course, no surprise, looking at this witness, could he have been meeting Michael for drugs? Could he have been doing this? Could he have been doing that? Could Michael have gone downstairs and gotten attacked? Is it physically possible? Is it conceivable? Yes. Just, it's one of those things, as bizarre as thinking of a Kelly Nash or Caleb Harris scenario. I think in the odds world, those are more likely than Michael just happening to go downstairs and getting snatched up by somebody who comes by. Now, regarding what you're saying, Rockford, about the opponent might have been in the dorm. Okay. Well, did he go down there and something happened? Then we have to start thinking about he got carried out of the dorm without anybody noticing. Like I said, it seems very, very unlikely. And in fact, even for those disappearances that we've had with people who've been addicts, who have been staying at shady motels, like most recently with Tanova Ross, in any of them, do we think that any of those people actually died in a room and then got carried out? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think that that's the main theory for any of them. So then I'm going to hesitate to pick that in this situation where we have college students who most of them probably are not on drugs. I realize that would be able to keep their mouth shut all of these years, and they're up on the 6th floor, wherever his opponent was. It gets complicated to me very, 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 very fast. Whereas on the other hand, I can quickly just name Caleb Harris and Kelly Nash right off the top of my head and think, It just sounds more like that. It does. Yeah, Ed, no problem, Ed. Yes, okay. So that's what I got on Michael Negrete. You can go, like I said, I'm guessing there have been YouTube shows and podcasts done. You let me know if you come across any other host out there who has put forward the theory that I have, that I think that it was something mental with him that he walked off. Please let me know. Unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Email me. If you come run across a show that has covered his disappearance and has stated the same conclusion, he walked off by himself because of something that was going on, in his brain that wasn't quite right. I'll be interested to know. I bet he's close to campus. That seems most likely. I think foul play is least likely. I'd bet an ill-advised late-night field trip over foul play. All right, Rockford, thank you. And thank you for your local knowledge on that. So, Derek, going back, once again, I just want to make something clear. I'm not saying he was sleepwalking. I do not believe that he went to bed and got out of bed, unless we're talking about Ambien. But Ambien, that's not sleepwalking. The way we normally define sleepwalking, at least that's not the way I look at it. Ambien is something, chemical, a drug that is making one part of your brain do one thing and make your other part of your brain do another. And that's for anybody who decides they need to take it. You get into bed under the covers, then you take it. Do not take it while you are still, brushing your teeth before you go to bed, or, eating at the kitchen table, some late night cereal, and take it then with your food and then go to bed. Because I'm telling you, if you do that, you will not end up in bed. I'm not saying you're going to go out and run around the neighborhood or anything, but when you finally, the Ambien finally wears off, who knows where you might be. Just saying. Let's move on now to the Kardashians. If you saw, maybe you didn't, and I'm not, of course, I did like an hour on Michael Negrete. I, of course, don't have as much to say regarding the Kardashians, but if you didn't see, after the coverage of Amy Bradley came out, I've not seen it, just to reiterate. I think I know that disappearance pretty well, though. The Kardashians, yes, those Kardashians, who have been reality stars for 20 years or something now. I read that they somehow got Amy Bradley's family's direct numbers and called the family directly. How would that be something? You pick up the phone, it's Kim Kardashian or something. That would be something. And they were starting to ask questions, and I guess they saw the coverage, and it seems maybe they are thinking about putting their efforts into trying to find out what happened to Amy Bradley, and if she really did get sex trafficked. Is it really her in that picture? Did she really get sex trafficked? Did something really happen down there in Curacao, and that she didn't fall off a ship like I believe she did? Now, you may be also wondering, well, Ed, what do you think of that? I say good luck to them. If they, I realize that the Kardashians don't have the greatest reputation, but somehow they still continue to be on TV, and a lot of people just continue to watch them, maybe just because they hate them. And I've never watched one episode. They certainly are the stereotypes of people who are famous just for being famous and everything. But I will say, on the other hand, they have gotten involved in some wrongly convicted, gotten involved with some, I guess, mainly men who got convicted and maybe they weren't really guilty. So good luck to them. But I will tell them, if they're listening, if they want to call me, I'll gladly, if they want to help Amy Bradley, I will give the Kardashians, I promise you, my most objective advice. Even though I think Amy went into the water, if the Kardashians were to call me and ask me, Ed, how should we go about this? And I'd be like, well, you want to try to figure out if she was actually sex trafficked? And they say yes, I would help. I don't I don't want anybody to ever think that if I talk to them, I would tell them, oh, it's a big waste of time. If they want to put their money and their time into doing that, then I'm willing to give them my best advice. Now, I think they're wrong, but still, I would try to be as objective as possible. And so I don't necessarily have anything against them wanting to help Amy Bradley's family. On the other hand, I think that no one should ever get involved in a case because of what they see on TV. Now, they could get involved because of what they hear on Unfound, because we're doing it in a very objective way, and it's not edited in a way for sensationalism and everything else, certainly. But remember, TV is not informative, it's entertainment. And these people who put together these shows, they're show producers. They're not disappearance experts. They're not news reporters. It's not necessarily about the facts. Remember that. And so I would tell, of course, the Kardashians, they're in TV, they're in reality TV. And you also you have to remember, probably what you think you know about them, a lot of it is not true. It's just played up, and that's the way reality TV goes. I would urge all of you to stop watching it. But if they were to call me and want my advice, I would give it to them. I would not insult them. I would not tell them to try to stay away. I would tell them, though, like I just told you, I think it's a bad idea to get involved in a case just because it's on TV. That seems like a bad choice, even though I know all of you have made millions and millions and millions of dollars on TV. But this is much more serious than anything that you do on your show. And I think before you really put your time and money into this, you need to hear all sides on it, is probably what I would tell them. If they want to get involved, fine with me. But I would try to help them, and I would certainly not make fun of them or anything else. And certainly, whatever the outcome, I would hope that they would be successful. I don't mind being wrong. I don't mind being wrong. Certainly, it would bother me if I were to find out that Amy Bradley was sex trafficked and has been raped for the last 25 years. That sounds pretty horrible. That is horrible. But if that's what the Kardashians want to try to figure out, okay. I'll give you my best advice on it. It's a tough topic, but you also have to remember, as I would also tell them, money doesn't solve disappearances. Rewards don't work. Over and over and over again, they don't work. And we have to remember, I don't know how many of you know this, but Tyler Perry, you know who Tyler Perry is, I think most of you do. He, I think even to this day, has a huge reward here in Florida regarding the two men who went missing some years ago. One was a Hispanic guy who might have been in the United States without proper paperwork, and then the other guy was a black guy who was an American citizen. Remember, they both got pulled over by a cop south of here. Was it Naples, Florida, maybe? And they both went missing. And they're both still missing. And it does seem that this cop had at least something to do with both of those disappearances. The stories he told about what he did with these guys doesn't make any sense. It's just not, it's not believable. And Tyler Perry has put up a huge reward for information leading to the resolution of either of those disappearances. The guys are still missing. So just because the Kardashians, who have a lot of money too, and fame and everything, get involved, it really doesn't. It really doesn't mean anything. But if that's what they want to do with their fame and money, that's fine with me. It's probably better than most things they could do with their fame and money. So that's my attitude. I'm going to still insist. I think Amy went over the side. She might have gotten pushed. Could have been foul play. I don't know how you would ever show that now. Either way, I think she went into the water. And I don't think it matters that the ship was so close to shore. It doesn't matter. I just don't think it matters. Remember, there was a Unfound now I did a couple years ago of a guy who I think jumped off a cruise ship, an actual worker on a cruise ship who jumped from a ship up in Alaska within, I don't know, was it a quarter mile? Was it less than that from shore? Gone. Still missing. So it happens. It can happen. So the Kardashians, good luck to them. They can email me. Of course, my phone number can be found out there if you really, 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 really look for it. But if they want to email me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com and it's really them, I will lend my assistance. And they want to go down to Curacao and with her picture and talk to everybody, fine by me. That's my attitude. Let me get to a couple things, and then I will get to this Arkansas serial killer. Now, as far as, of course, this past Friday, the disappearance of Zachary Vidal, of course, as you heard, a very, very emotional interview. Majority in the discussion group believe that, yes, something did happen at that house that was mentioned in the episode. But it was not an overwhelming majority. In the think tank that was last night, I don't think anybody believed that the house story at all. I think it was pretty much a consensus vote, majority, if not total vote, that, as often happens with people like Zachary, these people just walk off and die. Overdose, the elements, accident, something like that, and he just simply hasn't been found yet. And that's what I wrote. Of course, the Patreon blog that I wrote, it's kind of like getting an additional podcast. It's like 17 minutes long. Once again, Unfound, patreon.com/Unfound podcast. If you'd like to get an additional audio file every week where I go over my insights into the disappearance for that week, because as you know, I don't, for the most part, give them out except for a little piece after the interview. I also came to the conclusion that I just think he's out there somewhere dead, and I don't think it's foul play. It's very, very sad. Let me see what everybody is saying. Stephanie says, I wonder if there will be things like false confections and bogus tips from misguided people trying to get attention from the Kardashians. Of course. Stephanie, of course. Inevitable. And the people don't even have to be psychics and palm readers and numerologists. That's what you get. When fame and fortune come into this, there's a lot of horrible people out there. So, yeah. Rockford, if they show up in the think tank, I'll know you had quite the conversation with them. Yeah, if the Kardashians were to show up in the think tank on Patreon, that would be one for the books. Some other things. I appeared on friend of the podcast, Heather Grotman's podcast this past weekend, at least part one, where we discussed the unusual death. Of course, we're speaking of Michael Negrete and what went on, what could have gone on there. Blair Adams, Canadian, sneaks into the United States, finally gets into the United States, does all of these weird things, and then finally is discovered out in the street dead. Internal injuries, even look like he might have been accosted or assaulted, maybe even raped. And there he was, dead. She and I discussed that, and you can check that out. Just look for the Lost and Found blog podcast on Spotify and elsewhere. Part two Heather and I discuss the unusual death of Cindy James, maybe not coincidentally, a Canadian, but this happened entirely in Canada, where for years she claimed that there were people after her. Nobody could ever prove that. She hired a private investigator. He could never catch anybody or anything. And then she ends up dead with not illegal drugs, but sedatives and things in her system. Her hands are tied to her wrists. Her wrists are tied to her ankles or something like that. And the coroner eventually decided that she was the one who did it to herself. And those were both unsolved mystery segments way back in the day. And Heather invited me on to talk about both of those. So check out the one that's already out regarding Blair Adams. And I don't know, did she release the second one yet or not? I don't know. But the part 2 will be with Cindy James, I think was her name. And you can hear what I had to say about that. Not disappearances, so out of my realm of expertise, but I did my, I think my best with it. So you can judge that for yourself. Once again, the Lost and Found Blogs podcast, hosted by Heather Grotman, who has appeared on Unfound, I don't know, 7 times, something like that. Of course, she appeared not too long ago to talk about the disappearance of Kenneth Playstead. Moving on, last Thursday, this is the reason that Dee and I did not get together last Thursday for trivia, was Jason Blair interviewed me for a upcoming episode of his podcast, the Silver Linings Playbook podcast. And we talked mainly about the disappearances of Native Americans. And man, we went for 2 hours and it went really, really fast. We talked about a multitude of missing Native Americans, and then a couple that were eventually solved, and he wanted my insights into them. And we had a really good discussion. And you should know that when of course, he and I went back and forth for a little while at the beginning, me going over my credentials first. But when we actually did start talking about the disappearance of Native Americans, I do want all of you to know that I made sure everybody understands. I just want everybody to know I'm not Native American. I'm a white guy, and I know it's a touchy subject. And I just wanted to assure people, I'm just looking at this from as scientific and objective point of view as I can. I'm not trying to be a white person telling Native Americans what they should be doing and how to live and everything. I really, 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 really tried to avoid that, because it's not good. I really just tried to look at the disappearances for what they are. I've never been on a Native American reservation. Certainly have known some Native American people, but I most likely, when I lived in Las Vegas, but what do I know about, I read about the culture and what goes on there and everything, but I don't know what it's like to be there. So I just have to look at the disappearances for what they are. And I think in general, what I would say is that Native Americans disappear for all the reasons that everybody else disappears. It just seems to happen a lot more. And so we talk about that. So I don't know when that's coming out. I'm guessing within the next month and a half, 2 months, because I remember when he interviewed me before that it was sometime in late November of last year when he interviewed me the first time. And when did that episode come out? A month later, or early January? I don't remember. So it's not going to be like next week or anything, but be looking for that. However, he did ask me to write an article for his Substack. Is that what it's called? regarding missing persons cases, regarding the 3 biggest myths about disappearances, and you can go find that. I did link, there is a link in the discussion group on Facebook and on the Facebook page if you want to read about what I think are the 3 biggest myths these days for, all of you. I think it's free to read. So hopefully all of you can check that out. I enjoyed reading it, writing it. Kind of wrote it. I think he said somewhere right between like 850 and 1,400 words. I think I split the difference around 11 to 1,200, which for me is like nothing. The Patreon blog's at least 3,000 words every weekend. So 1,100 words is really not that big of a deal. I went through it pretty fast. And then Jason edited it a little bit. So you can find that. Once again, you'll find the link in the discussion group on Facebook or on the Facebook page. If you're not on Facebook, I would say just do a search for Jason Blair and missing persons and something like that. And I think you'll find it. Moving on, and I did enjoy doing that. Maybe I'll get to do that sometimes again soon. George, have been a seafarer for 22 years, missing persons involving people last seen offshore or peninsula on pleasure crafts, ferries, cruise ships, etc. Only one logical place they end up. Agree with your conclusion there. George, seafarer for 22 years. Thank you for supporting me in my idea regarding Amy Bradley, George. I appreciate that. Of course, nobody in any way should ever feel forced to agree with me. We can talk about any reasonable theory out there. But George, thank you for the support. Moving on. Unfortunately, we were myself and my assistant Eric were supposed to have gotten some word back on a FOIA that we filed with the Coast Guard regarding the series that I want to put together. August 15th came and went without any news. So I think Eric was working on that today, and we'll see. Let me see if he sent me anything, any information regarding that yet. It doesn't seem that he has. So he said he was going to be talking to somebody, has not sent me any information. So I don't know what is going on there, because we had filed it over a month ago and they said that, they'd get back to us by August 15th. Well, that was last Friday. All right, and if you're wondering what that series is, it has to do with people who go missing in the Atlantic Ocean. Teresa Hickman, Angela Westbury. But 2 girls who went missing from Jacksonville in 1984, and then once we got into that, I discovered some other ones. And I'd like to do a whole series, talking to the Coast Guard, talking to these families, talking to Eric, talking to whoever I need to talk to, and put it into kind of a long form series. That's something I don't normally do. Trying to put that together, not easy. Moving on, a couple more things. The new website, theunfoundpodcast.com, the refresh of it is almost done. I've not talked to the website builder in a week, so I'm guessing it's getting done. I'm guessing it's going to be done soon. We'll just have to see. I continue to work on the database, almost done with it. I'm doing 10 entries per day, which means I'll be done I got 50 more to go. So 10 a day. So maybe by the end of this week, that'll all be done, and we can move to the next step on that. So I've been pretty, as you can tell, I've been pretty busy, pretty busy. And then I don't know how much I wanted to get into it tonight, but I'm going to be trying to start some sort of consulting business when it comes to missing persons. That is the other website that is going to get built. It hasn't even been started yet. And once it's put together, you'll have a better idea of my vision for that. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen, just not this month. And this will be a situation where I'll be out there and I will, behind the scenes, give families, whether it's the disappearance is a week old or 30 years old, I will, or even older than that, they send me all the information and I will give them, my insights of what I think can be done now. I will do it for a fee, but on the other hand, there is going to be a money back guarantee, and that will all be explained eventually once the website is up and you can see all that. Because I am, I guess you could just say I'm going to put my my actions where my mouth is. I think that I've proven that I can really predict the outcomes of disappearances fairly well, ones that get solved. And we're going to put that to the ultimate test. That's what I'm going to do. All right, so we got 10 minutes left. Let's get to this serial killer. I want to read this story. This is about, of course, this guy, young monster who killed this married couple. The man accused of killing a married couple while they were on a hiking trip with their kids in Arkansas, July 26th, is being looked at for possible involvement in other murders. Arkansas State Police allege Andrew James McGann, MC, capital M's, capital M, lowercase c, capital G-A-N-N, McGann, killed Kristen Amanda Brink and Clinton David Brink while the couple were taking their children hiking at Devil's Den State Park in Washington County, Arkansas. McGann has pled not guilty during his arraignment on Thursday morning, according to Channel 5 News. Speaking outside of the courtroom, Washington County prosecuting attorney Brandon Carter said he's still planning to seek the death penalty against McGann, adding it will be a long process. This is where the hard part begins and the long walk begins to get this case to justice. Colonel Mike Hager, Arkansas State Police Director, said McGann confessed to the killings, added they were stabbed to death in a completely random event. We have no reason to believe there are any known association between our suspect and our victims. During an interview with investigators, the suspect admitted to committing the murders. We also executed a search warrant at his residence and recovered items consistent with the crime. Detective from the Sauk County Sheriff's Office in Wisconsin told Fox News Digital his agency has received tips regarding a possible connection between the July 26th incident and a separate October 14th, 2020 incident, so almost 5 years ago, incident in Devil's Lake State Park, where John Craig Schmutzer was stabbed while hiking on the Grottos Trail. The detective said police are trying to determine if there's any link between McGann and the death of Schmutzer. We've received many tips, both from citizens in Arkansas and Wisconsin, regarding the Devil's Den homicide and the possible connection to our homicide from October of 2020. According to ABC 7 News, McGann grew up in Chicago's Garfield Ridge neighborhood, which is about 3 hours from the Devil's Lake State Park. The Sauk County Sheriff's Office said Schmutzer's killer was roughly 6 feet tall with a slender to average build. Jail records from Washington County, Arkansas indicate McGann is 6 feet tall. The Vermont State Police said on August 7th, in an August 7th press release, the detectives reached out to law enforcement in Arkansas to discuss the death of Honoree Fleming, whose body was found on the Delaware and Hudson Rail Trail in Castleton. After the Vermont State Police learned of the recent double homicide of a couple on a hiking trail in Arkansas and the arrest of a suspect, Vermont State Police detectives took the routine step of contacting their counterparts in Arkansas to discuss this case. At this time, there's no known link between the suspect in that case and the Honoree Fleming homicide or to Vermont in general. So what do I think about this? Well, I realize they have to start looking into this stuff, but we have to remember that stabbing deaths in the United States aren't that rare overall. It's something, of course, we get all caught up in the gun culture in the United States, certainly true, but lots and lots and lots of people being stabbed to death as well, mainly because a lot of people don't own guns. And a lot of these murders are not planned, meaning they're spur of the moment. And what is the first thing? You're going to grab a knife. There's a lot of different reasons why that could happen. So, knife deaths in state parks or national parks, that seems pretty general to me. Now, on the other hand, if the people in Arkansas had been killed with a very unique type of caliber of gun, let's say 10 millimeter or 357 Signum Magnum, but SIG, which is a different kind of caliber, and all the person in Wisconsin was, and the person in Vermont was, then that would be different. Then I would be a little more convinced. But if it's just knifing, it's just, you just really can't draw any conclusions from that. The other thing, I think a reason I'm a little doubtful is that they caught this guy in Arkansas pretty fast. So he doesn't necessarily seem to me to be a super villain who's planning these things all out and is able to get away from the scene. Certainly would need to know more about the Wisconsin and the Vermont murders to see if there is any similar modus operandi or something. You know, is there any theory as to why the killer was able to get away in Wisconsin and Vermont? Does anybody who's a local know that, have any reason why that could have happened? What was the big difference between what happened in those two states and what happened in Arkansas, if it's all the same person? It's hard, it's hard to understand. I would also remind all of you that for a long time, I think a lot of people thought that the disappearance of 5 young men in San Francisco, all within 5 years, were all connected. We've covered 3 of them on Unfound, and I think that we've gotten to the point where everybody knows they're not connected. So even when you have 3 young men all around the same age, all disappearing within 10 square blocks of each other and everything, doesn't mean they're connected. So we start thinking about Arkansas, Wisconsin, and Vermont. I mean, none of those states are close to each other. It seems unlikely, but surely they're going to try to figure out where this McGann guy was during those times, and could he be traced to Wisconsin? Is there any reason to believe he was in Vermont? They're going to do that. At this point, it just seems fairly unlikely to me. My insight. So I got to all of the stuff in the title tonight, so I feel real good about that. So let's go to Friday's disappearance. And speaking of Native Americans, we are doing a Native American disappearance this Friday. And in fact, Jason and I in the episode actually talked coincidentally about this disappearance. It just happened to be that I did this interview, and then 2 days later I'm on Jason's show talking about Native American disappearances. That wasn't planned. Rockford, aside from both occurring in parks, all the Arkansas and Wisconsin cases have in common as being odd, right? He being in Chicago does give me a bit of pause, however. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how odd they are or not, Rockford. People being stabbed doesn't seem odd to me. And of course, Chicago is in Illinois, not Wisconsin. So once again, you can see what we want to see. There's just nothing that's pushing me that this McGann guy is responsible at all. I understand why they have to do this stuff, but I also realize how police love to think that one person just committed a bunch of crimes because that makes it easier for them. Instead of them having to investigate 3 different murders, all they have to do is investigate one. They're kind of thinking. I realize they're supposed to be thinking of the victims, but I also think they're just thinking of themselves a little bit too, and they're always trying to connect something to a serial killer, trying to make every killer out there a serial killer. This Friday, Leo Wagner from Babb, Montana. I'd never heard of this place. Babb, Montana. He was 26 years old. He went missing on April 27th of 2021. And his older brother, Billy, is the guest. Billy is a character. I'm telling you that right now. Probably, I'm warning you right now that there's going to have to be. I have not started working on the interview itself. I already did it, but I haven't started working on it. He surely set the record for the most swearing in an interview, so I'm going to have to do something about it. I tried. I got it. It just, he's not the type of person. I think it's almost subconscious. So, gonna have to do a little bit of editing regarding all that. I'll do my best. I just had to stop him and say, hey, Billy. But that's just the way he is. He seems like a really good guy, though. He's just a little bit of a character. But this is Leo's older brother, and that's this Friday. Leo, tough life. Tough life. Lost a child to a death. Leo had some drinking issues, drug issues, just really, really. And we have a witness to him being next to this lake, and it was, just not good. Leo was really, really struggling. But that's whose disappearance we're covering this Friday. Leo Wagner, Wagner. He is on Namus. He's not on the Charlie Project. Bab, Montana, 26 years old, April 27th, 2021. His brother Billy is the guest. And before everybody leaves, please wish my nephew Charlie, who's always in the chat, a happy birthday, because I missed it yesterday. I said I was going to mention it again before I leave. Before you go, wish Charles in the chat a happy birthday. If he was even still in here, I wonder if he's still here or not. But that's the end of the show. That's all I got. Got to all of Michael Negrete. Did not expect me to go an hour on that, but somehow I did. But we got to everything tonight. I hope everybody has a great week. Stay safe out there. Keep your heads on swivels. Do not be victims. Do not end up on my podcast. And you will hear me this Friday when I interview Billy Wagner for the disappearance of Leo. And that's it. Charlie, say hi to the kids for me. Once again, belated happy birthday, Charlie. Good night.